Hey everybody, and welcome to the third installment of the Pokemon Generation 1 Trainer Class Challenge. In this episode, I'm taking on the role of Blackbelt, the fighting specialist. Interestingly, while cutting a build for this run, I discovered that not all of the sprites have walking animations, so as you can probably already see, I'm not using the actual Blackbelt sprite to play through this time. I went with Bruno, figuring he was probably the best of the options that were available to me. The Pokemon I'm limited to for this run are Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, Machop Machoke, and Mankey Primate. I will be utilizing all four of them during this run. For my starter, I went with Hitmonlee. Of the countless times I played this game as a kid, I almost always chose Hitmonchan, making me much less familiar with Hitmonlee. In retrospect, this was probably the easiest I could have chosen as a starter. Had I known that going in, I would have gone with something a little bit different to up the challenge, but let's see how it goes. Heading into Brock's gym, I'm not really expecting him to put up much of a challenge. I think this is the first run where I'm just going to go ahead and plow straight through this first trainer to get another level, and then head straight and try Brock without healing in between. With the exception of the rival battle that we did, the optional rival battle that we did, that I'm not going to do in all playthroughs. I recorded this one very early when I thought I was going to do them all, but at the end, the extra experience you get from it can, as we'll see with this, make Brock a little bit easier than he probably should be. So I won't do that rival battle in very many future playthroughs unless I probably need to. But getting back here to these battles, that his first trainer goes down like a breeze, no problem at all. Heading to Geodude, we're doing super effective critical hits. It stands no chance despite our low level, but we level up again anyway. And Onyx is going to be right along those same lines. It's just super effective attacks, good attacks. A fighting Pokemon just makes Brock a non issue. This is not something I'll get to say often throughout these challenges, but as far as Black Belt is concerned, Brock is pretty laughable. So we clear him nice and easy, and from here we're just going to head straight on out to Mount Moon and see how fast we can keep this run going. After the trek through Mount Moon, as soon as I get to Cerulean, I decide I'm going to go for the rival battle before I go for Misty. Misty is probably going to be too challenging at this point for a single Pokemon. Despite the fact that we have leveled up decently as we went through Mount Moon, I don't think the battle with her would go very well, so we're going to come over and we're going to take on Rival first. The Pidgeotto clearly isn't too much of a problem. It goes down quick and easy. We had, I believe, a speed tie with it that let us get through with low damage. So when Abra comes out, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to use Meditate as many times as possible, really build up that attack. It probably isn't necessary to get through the rest of his party, but I'm going to do it anyway. So now that we're fully boosted, obviously Abra goes down without a problem at all. The Rattata he sends out is just the same. We're going to one-shot it, no problem. Even get the level up, which later on that might hurt us after boosting, but for here it's still good. So when Squirtle comes out, we take it down nice and easy, and Hitmonlee is really just carrying through as a very powerful starter. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. I wish I had chosen something else to start with. Probably any of the other three would have made these first battles a lot harder, but it is what it is. After our nice and easy rival battle, I think I get a little bit overconfident at this point. I head down to Misty's gym, and I'm going to try to do something kind of similar to what I did in Brock's gym, which is just kind of plow through the whole thing without going back to heal. I do end up regretting that, as we'll see here in my first attempt at Misty. Does not go well. I think this is our first loss of this run through, which isn't too bad. I'm trying to I'm using Meditate to try to set up a little bit against Staryu. Staryu is not really going to be the problem. Starmie is who I'm fearing, so that's why I was going with the setup. But as we're going to see here, it still doesn't end up panning out. I'm only at a 2-level disadvantage, but having a not very effective attack with an X-defended Starmie that is 2 levels higher than me, I just don't have the damage output to really do anything. Its attacks are really, really powerful. The battle does not go well. So I end up heading up I go to Bill's house in between these two battles, do the minimum required trainers there, come back at a much higher level 24, and this is where things go a lot different. My damage output is a lot better, my survivability is a lot better, and Bruce finally comes through with the win against Misty. So after this, we're going to head on down to the SS Anne. Now, looking back on that battle, I did realize a little too late that I forgot to pick up Mega Punch while I was in Mount Moon. I think that could have got me through the Misty battle a lot easier, but at this point I can't go back and fix that, so I just continued on. We did stop to pick up Mankey on our way down to the SSAN for our second party member. I did unfortunately forget to give him a nickname, but we do correct that a little bit later. Anyway, as we head into this rival battle, it's not too dissimilar for the first one, other than the fact that Mankey's going to go out early and get crushed by Pidgeotto. We're then going to fall back to old reliable Bruce. I did stop and pick up Body Slam on the way and in the SSN before this battle. We're going to heavily utilize it here. Body Slam is going to be a staple attack, I think, throughout this entire series. It's just too powerful to pass up on. Here we can see it's one-shotting Raticate there. We get the level up. Things are going nice and easy. Kadabra comes out. Usually this would be kind of a harsh matchup. However, at my absurd level and the power of Body Slam, Kadabra's a one-shot KO, no problem. Out comes Wartortle again. Huge level advantage. Things here just aren't challenging because I started with this solo Hitmonlee Bruce, who is just a monster at this point in the game. Easily clears this rival battle first try, no problem. From there, we're going to head straight to Surge and see how this goes. Now, since I didn't have a cut Pokemon at this point in the game, I did go out and catch an Oddish. That's why you can see 3 in my party, but per the rules, he's not usable for anything. When we get straight to Surge, though, Mankey at this point has utilized the Dig TM, which is going to be super effective in this battle, allowing him to prove a lot more useful than he was in the rival fight, even catching his first level up there. He takes out the Voltorb, no problem. He's also going to take out the Pikachu, pretty much no problem. That is about the extent of his usefulness during this battle, though. We're going to see as soon as Raichu comes out, Raichu is really Surge's only problem Pokemon that's ever going to be any difficult at all, especially when he's getting those X speeds off. His Thunder Shock clearly does a lot of damage and hits me with the paralysis for the double hurt. Dig, super effective, does great, but it's just not enough. The outspeed and the power of Raichu are going to let him take Mankey down anyway. Still, noble fight put up by Mankey. For being such a low level to go this far against Surge really says a lot to how weak Surge is in this game. Bruce is going to come in and clean things up, no problem. So from here, we're going to head off to Rock Tunnel, where we are going to try to catch a Machop to extend the team to 3, and then head to the rival battle. This rival fight ends up surprising me a little bit. I expected it to be a lot harder. I expected maybe a loss here. We do end up pulling out a first try victory, though, which is pretty nice. Per the rules, as soon as we got to Lavender Town, we did stop and we did finally give Mankey his nickname. As you'll see here shortly, he's now Optimus. And then also the Machop we picked up in Rock Tunnel along the way is, I'm sure this isn't going to get obnoxious at all. For some reason, my sick head went with Get Swole Boy. So anyway, out comes Optimus for the rival fight. I forget here that Dig's not going to be very effective. For some reason, I always think that Dig is super effective against Execute and Executor, but it's not. You'll see me do that 1,000 times in this series, and I don't know why that doesn't get through my head. But anyway, as we get through into this rival battle, this series of barrages and sleeps are just absolutely obnoxious. Optimus really should have been able to get a lot more done than he does, but between being asleep and the constant barrages, he ends up going down a lot earlier than I expected, not doing much. We're going to, again, rely on Bruce to carry us through this battle. At least his leveling up is starting to slow down significantly now. Now that I have 3 members in the team, he's going to stop being, this out front beast ahead carrying the team through. The others are going to be able to catch up. There's no longer going to be, from this point in the game, really a one party member carry. It's going to get a lot more even. Now, that being said, despite the fact that I do take down this rival on my first try, I'm at this point really, really concerned about how this tower is going to go. All of the ghost Pokemon can't get hit by any of my adequate moves. I think when this battle is over, I'm going to head off to Celdon, obviously, but I'm also going to be hunting along the way through all of my TMs, trying desperately to give this team some special attacks before we come back and have to try to tackle these ghost Pokemon. I should have a few that are usable that I can make use of. I do unfortunately forget about Dig. I always feel like Dig shouldn't affect ghosts, so I tend not to use it, but it does. It's actually super effective, and you'll see me not use it at all while I climb that tower later, which I really regret. Um, anyway, we head back over to Game Corner for our fight with Giovanni. Um, the Giovanni fight, I did actually lose this on my first time or two. I thought that we would fare very, very well against him and wasn't concerned about it at all. But he did pull out a surprise victory against me on my first run through. So the run we're seeing here is actually my second attempt at him. As we can see, we have leveled up a little bit along the way. There were a few required trainers that got us those. But I did lose to him the first time, and I think I might have leveled up during that battle too. Throughout most of this series, if I do lose, a main fight like this, I'm generally just kind of accepting the loss as is. Um, the loss, because I'm going to be reliant on TMs to get me through some of the game, and later on healing items for in between Elite Four members. I didn't feel it's really right to be able to just constantly reset everything. When losses occur, I accept it and I take the financial loss of that, but usually the experience with it. Anyway, after we do take down Giovanni, we're making a very rare trip over into the fighting dojo. The fighting dojo is something that this is probably going to be the only run that I actually go through it on. I'm doing this so we can finalize our team, we can get that Hitmonchan, and have the fully fleshed out team that we're going to try to take on the Elite Four with. So this is my battle with the head of the fighting dojo, kind of like a little bit of a I don't know whether to call this a grudge match or another form of rival match, but yeah, anyway, it goes well. It's really not too hard, despite the fact that he is clearly leveled up way higher than me. We end up pulling out a decently easy victory. Again, mostly on the back of this Hitmonlee. This Comet Punch, 4-hit Comet Punch was rough, but we're not worried about it. We have that Body Slam. It hits with the paralysis. Things are just going to go our way as they usually go our way, especially when we have Bruce out. And with that, we're picking up Hitmonchan. Um, obvious, well, who do I... Sorry, I don't know why I almost picked Hitmonlee. Yeah, there we go. We get Hitmonchan. He is going to go... From here on out, he will be known as Jackie, for obvious reasons. You may have noticed that we had skipped Erica after that. Well, Erica was an interesting fight. I think I lost to her 3 times, maybe, before I decided, let's just go grab Hitmonchan. I think he can really help turn things around a little bit. Having the extra Pokemon there can really help get me through this. The wraps I was facing were just absolutely brutal. It felt like I wasn't getting turns at all, really, against Erica. Brutal battles. They were long, they were boring, and they were losses. So that's why I ended up heading over to the Fighting Dojo, grab a couple levels along the way since there were 4 required trainers, grab an extra Pokemon for my party. Now we're going to come back. She's immediately coming at me with the Sleep Wrap combo, which is just vicious. It makes this battle really kind of boring, to be honest, I think. But that's just the way Erica is. You have to find a way to fight these wars of attrition against her and hopefully come out on top. Some of the parties I'm going to have are going to absolutely trounce her. Some of the parties I have, like this one, she's going to be one of the harder battles of the game. Evidenced here by my multiple losses ahead of time. I'm not showing those though, because again, they were just wrap and sleep and poison, long, boring, drug out fights that I absolutely hated. So I was really, really happy to finally get through Erica after this one. Even playing these Erica battles at 200% speed, they are just an absolute drag. I do manage to get through that victory bell though, finally, and onto Tangela, but it just continues from here. The poison and the wrap and the bind, constrict, it's just obnoxious. It's just annoying. I can't tell you how badly I wanted these to be over. I would have given anything to be able to have Fire Punch maybe at this point in time. But we don't have anything that really does a ton of damage to her. She doesn't have anything that does a ton of damage to me, but it's the combination of just dragging out poisoned turns to slowly whittle me down to nothing. It's one of those battles where this is really where not being allowed to use items in battle is what makes this the challenge, really. Had I been able to heal my poisons throughout this or awaken my Pokemon or do anything to get through this, it would have gotten a lot easier, but we just don't have those kind of options. Anyway, we finally managed to take down Tangela with Get Swole Boy, who is starting to catch up in levels. He's up to 26, so things are going well. And out comes Vileplume, her absolute beast. Vileplume is an interesting one, because it falls one of two ways. Vileplume is either nightmarishly hard, as you could see, it just easily takes down Get Swole Boy. Or there's going to be a lot of Pokemon, though, that absolutely just lock Vileplume into being absolutely useless. I don't have any of those that I'm aware of, but thankfully, with the critical hit, Bruce is finally able to pull out a victory here. Erica finally taken down. That hopefully is the last hard bit of this run. After here, things might start to look up a little bit, but let's just watch and see. Because after Erica, I have to head back to that dreaded Pokemon Tower. I'm not usually going to show any clips from Pokemon Tower. It's generally a non-event type thing, but with an all-fighting party, I just kind of wanted to show one battle from this to see what kind of a drag it was. I taught Thunder Shock to Optimus. It was one of the few special attacks I had access to at this point in time, but it just doesn't do a lot of damage. It's a good attack, but none of my Pokemon have a high enough special stat to really utilize it. So we barely come out on top of that Ghastly, and that's just one channeler of the many. Well, I guess it's only a few you have to fight along the way. Anyway, after that, it is down and on to Koga's gym. The trainers in Koga's gym before him carry all psychic type Pokemon, despite it being, the poison gym or whatever. They're all psychics, and it was a nightmare. The two required trainers, I think both might have taken me out on my first try against each of them. But we finally do make it by him through getting a few levels along the way, and we can see here Optimus has evolved into a Primeape. He gets a big stat boost from that, and really starts to come to light to be a real contributor to this team. Optimus, I guess Primeape, is not a Pokemon I'd ever really used before, so I didn't know what to expect out of him. But once Mankey evolved, it really, really showcased its strength. It came out a lot better than I thought it would. Even here, he's doing really well against Koga, despite being noticeably underleveled for it. The poison does eventually get to him, but not too worried about that. Optimus put up a good fight for only being level 30. He did awesome. We're going to fall back onto Bruce, our usual, who is just getting absolutely slammed by that. But he's still going to take it out anyway. It's not a problem. Out comes Coughing. We do, despite the fact that I do get a first try victory against Koga here, it surprises me a little bit. And we witnessed something again. I think this happened in my first run as well. When his wheezing finally comes out, he just seems to always go for self destruct at some point eventually, and I don't understand why. I don't know if this is an AI bug or what, but I feel like if wheezing is his last Pokemon, they probably should correct this so it can't use self destruct. Um, but he doesn't go for it right away, as we can see. He does end up, he takes down Bruce, and he's doing a lot of damage to get Swole Boy, but there comes self destruct. And we get the victory. Is it earned? Is it not? I don't know. I kind of feel like not, but we're going to take the badge anyway because a win is a win. And from here, we're kind of looking forward to heading up to Saffron, where I'm definitely terrified of that gym in Sabrina. Thankfully, we get to go to the rival fight first anyway. Hopefully, grab some levels along the way. Let's see how this goes. I do end up losing to rival my first time through. His Pidgeot outspeeds Optimus, obviously. I threw him out there because I figure, his Thunderbolt might be pretty useful. It does decent damage, but not great. That wing attack is just doing more. So between the powerful wing attack and the outspeed, it doesn't really have a choice. He took me down every time. My first fight with him, the obvious, brick wall that I hit is the Alakazam that comes out a bit later. His Alakazam one-shot everything I had available. It both outsped and one-shot killed everything in my party. It really doesn't bode well for the Sabrina fight that comes after this. Thankfully, in the rival fight, it wasn't too bad to end up getting by. I think I might have come right back at him again with just well, no, I'm sorry, I didn't. I did go do one or two other battles throughout the Rocket headquarters, grabbed a couple levels, hoping I could get something that would outspeed, and then coming back. When I do come back, I'm going to utilize Badge Boost essentially to get by this. Bruce has Meditate, which at this point in time is boosting a lot of my stats. So I'm going to set up here against the Execute and utilize all of the Meditate boost and the Badge boost that I get from that to more or less carry me through this battle. I thought that was a better strategy than just going and leveling up a ton. Badge boost, I guess, can be considered a little bit glitchy, but we're going to utilize everything we have, especially when we have to go up against a very powerful psychic Pokemon and we have nothing but fighters on our team. So thankfully, this time we get the one shot. We kind of turned the tables on Alakazam. Instead of it one-shotting everything I have, we one-shot it. Just leaves us with Blastoise, who's not too terrible to deal with. It has a noticeable level advantage, and it's a very tanky Pokemon. That's why I chose it to be the rival against us for this run. But ultimately, his Blastoise just isn't too much of a threat. Jackie takes him down without too much of a problem. So after the rival fight, we're going to head over into Giovanni, who did take me down my first time last time. I'm a little bit nervous heading into this Giovanni fight. Kind of expecting a loss there as well. I don't know if I'm going to have to level up or find some sort of strategy against him. Anyway, we're going to heal before that battle. So after healing up and then coming out and taking out the one Rocket Grunt, we're going to just use our potion again. Then head into the Giovanni battle. I do get a surprise first try victory against him this time, but it is kind of hard fought. His team is just a decent matchup for mine, not to mention the noticeable out-leveling. Against his Nidorino, Dig is going to do very well, super effective. Seeing that kind of gives me hope for the rest of the battle and hope for him as a gym leader not being too much of a problem. So we're going to kind of let Optimus in as long as he can. Doesn't do nearly as well against Kangaskhan, but Kangaskhan doesn't really do a lot of damage to us yet either, except for that critical Rage. As long as Rage doesn't build, Kangaskhan shouldn't be too much of a problem. And thankfully it ends up not. The super high crit rate for those Karate Chops helps me deal out some nice damage, eventually getting the kill. Optimus, again, really starting to show off his strength too. I don't have to lean on Bruce to be a single powerhouse anymore. All four of these Pokemon are starting to come into their own showcase what they can do. So Get Swole Boy is going to come out. Rhyhorn obviously is not going to be a problem. Its typing just lets me take it down without a problem. His Nidoqueen, however, is a lot stronger. I do take this down eventually, but it's showcasing a lot of damage output against me. Thankfully, I don't get poisoned by the poison stings. Between that and the tail whip, it really could have gone a different way, but thankfully things go out well. I barely survived that attack. Lets me get in and get a swap. Bring Jackie in here, help spread the experience, help stay alive. And Jackie does end up, I think, taking down Nidoqueen. Submission's not doing great damage, but it's hurt enough that I'm not too worried about it anyway. Thankfully, that's a kind of a lucky tail whip. He really needs to be attacking me at this point, not dropping my stats. I'm going to take advantage of that, take him down, and we get that first try victory against Giovanni that I was not expecting, but I'm super happy to see. It bodes well for the future. Here we go on to the scary part of Saffron, though, because after Giovanni is Sabrina. I'm going to go ahead and show my first attempt at Sabrina here, but as you can probably expect, it does not go well. This Psybeam takes me out in one shot, no problem. It really is not boding well for the rest of the battle that one of her weaker Pokemon is one-shotting me. And both of my party members, two down to one shots from her first Pokemon. This is not great. This is horrible. One shots Jackie as well. Could not be going worse. No one can oh, there we go. Bruce steps up to the plate and gets that one shot. So Kadabra, I have a strategy for Kadabra now. Send Bruce out there first. But I don't think I'm going to be able to really rely on him for the whole battle. Especially not when that Alakazam comes out. He does take out Mr. Mime as well. But that's really where things stopped going my way this battle. They started off horrible. I got a little bit of this second wind out of Bruce. He did some work. But Venomoth is going to show up and just end things for me. A Psybeam out of Venomoth almost takes me out. I know it doesn't really matter what I do. Even had I maybe crit and killed him on that, it wouldn't have mattered. Alakazam's going to take me out anyway. So that was a battle I didn't expect to win, but I did it anyway. Really showed me what I already knew. So we're skipping Sabrina for now. We headed on down to try and take on Blaine to get our next badge this way, grab a few levels along the way, go through the mansion. And the battle with Blaine ends up being a lot easier. I do pull out a first try victory here. Surprised me a little bit. I didn't think he was going to be a problem. I just thought I was going to be a little bit under-leveled for him. Thankfully, the battle does go my way, though. Blaine's Growl is just not a problem, and his Ponyta doesn't really fare too much better. His Super Potion usage does kind of drag things out a little bit, but ultimately, none of his initial Pokemon can really just do enough damage to get by the fact that Get Swole Boy is pretty swole. He's going to take him down. He ends up carrying me a lot farther into this battle than I expected. I didn't expect him to get through the first two, let alone the first three. Rapidash comes out, and I thought that's kind of where his run was over. Fortunately, he does really, really well. That Rock Slide is doing a ton of damage. I do flinch a time or two, but his Super Potion usage just gives me plenty of opportunities to attack and just outdo him on damage. We end up going through, I think, all three of his first Pokemon. His Arcanine will eventually come out, and which represents a big challenge for me. It's a step up in level. It's by far the strongest non-psychic Pokemon I've had to take on up to this point in the game. And only having 5 HP, I know this isn't going to go well. He is doing something a little bit strange there in using Super Potions on a full health Pokemon. I thought that might have been a glitch when it happened, so I ended up looking into this afterward, and strangely enough, it's not. Blaine's AI has him set to where he just has like a 25% chance of using a super potion available at any given time, even at full health. So I'll take it. Um, Besides, it didn't really matter anyway. Optimus comes out and with a super effective dig, takes him out in one shot. So Blaine is down. It's not a problem. We've leveled up a little bit. It's time to head back to Sabrina. When I get back to Sabrina, I did actually lose a couple times. I did not just go back and walk through her. I think I lost to her 2 more times before finally finding a way through. And it did just get to the point of I had to outspeed her. I had to level up enough to where we could outspeed that Kadabra and get by it. As we can see, Optimus does exactly that. Once we're through there, we're not worried about having to be super fast anymore, not against Mr. Mime and not against Venomoth. So we can swap out to our Pokemon, bring in, start getting through some rock slides, try to get some damage. Mr. Mime is generally her weakest Pokemon, so I'm going to throw who I think at this point in the game is my weakest Pokemon against it. Fortunately, we do come out on top. Venomoth is something where I tried. In my previous losses, I attempted to use Venomoth as a point to set up. Um, I was using Bruce to try to set up Meditates to hopefully get me by that Alakazam, and things just weren't going well. Venomoth is just not as weak as I thought it was. It's never really been a problem before, but it certainly is again with these fighting Pokemon now. And I'm curious how many other trainer classes are going to have this as well. A Pokemon that I never really considered to be a problem spot at all showcased that it's not the weakling I thought it was. But anyway, we do end up coming back to Optimus. He finally gets the KO. We do still have Bruce set aside. We have our killer ready to come out. He's the last one we have, but he's caught up enough that I do believe... Okay, he doesn't outspeed. I was wrong about that. But we have Mega Punch now, and we get the crit, so we one-shot Alakazam. Sabrina is finally, after I think 4 losses, taken down, and we can head on to Giovanni for our final gym badge. The battle with Giovanni and his gym is something that I really didn't know what to expect out of. I thought maybe I'll get by it pretty okay. Maybe it'll take me a few tries. I really don't know. Anyway, we come out and we're immediately going to start with Optimus and we're going to come after Dig. It's going to be super effective, which allows us to get by his Rhyhorn without a problem at all. Doug Trio, however, does represent a problem for us. We can see here, it outsped me on the first turn, then I outsped it on the second. I guess this means there's a speed tie for us, and my timing could not have been worse. But this time, however, we outspeeded both, and I'm really confused what's going on at that point in time. We just had to accept the loss there, though. I'm going to send out Jackie and try to utilize an Ice Punch to hopefully get a freeze in. That's what I'm going for here. It didn't work out right away, so I set up with some agilities, hoping that the damage increase would help me. And I get lucky. Doug Trio ends up using Growl there. Had Doug Trio used attacks, it could have done a lot more damage to me. Jackie certainly would have been taken out, and I think this fight would have completely gone sideways at that point in time. Thankfully, it doesn't. And Nidoqueen comes out, it's missing with attacks, it's choosing weak attacks anyway. I end up doing way more damage to it than I probably should have at that point. And we're going to utilize this, and we're going to fall back on our ace. We're going to bring out Bruce. He takes down the Nidoqueen with no problem. Now the Nidoking comes out, which I have not fought before, so I'm not really sure how this is going to go. We're going to use some Meditates to try to boost all of our stats. Really get that durability up, get the damage output up. It sucks that we're poisoned, but we're doing enough damage to two-shot it, and it's not much of a problem. This is the point where I really kind of think I've won, probably. And I debate switching Pokemon there, but we're going to end up keeping him out anyway. I don't want to lose those boosts, and thankfully we didn't. The super effective attack just does a ton of damage. We're at the point where we know Poison's going to take us out, but he's so low health that we go for it. We get the win anyway. Took down Giovanni, we have our final badge, and we even had a Pokemon left to spare. That was probably the easiest Giovanni battle we had. Thankfully, it came at the right time. We're going to head to the rival battle after this, and the rival battle is kind of a wall for this run. It does not go well. It takes several tries to get through. As you might be able to expect, the Alakazam again proved to be a brick wall for me. I could not get by him at all. I did end up kind of leveling up a little bit. Um, Pidgeot isn't too much of a problem. The ice attacks aren't doing as much damage against it as I thought it would. It turns out a lot of those attacks for Jackie are special based, and he just had a horrible special stat. So despite being ice, they don't go well. He goes down to Pidgeot. It does not make the fight look good at all. And especially Optimus taking that much damage. It's looking bad. I really feel like after having lost this battle, I think 3 times prior at this point, this one feels like it's going to be a loss as well. Thankfully, we get that nice super effective dig, leaves it with 1. Fury attack, however, does take us out. So we're going to fall back on Get Swole Boy, who takes out the Rhyhorn, no problem. Out comes the Growlithe, and here I'm going to switch. Growlithe is my opportunity to set up, so we're going to max out Meditates against this. Thankfully, his Growlithe is going to be stuck using Agility over and over because it's a Psychic attack, and it thinks it's going to be super effective against my fighting Pokemon. So we're abusing this a little bit here. I wish I'd have realized I could do this sooner. We essentially maxed out our stats using that Meditate over and over again, and then switch to fighting where, Mega Punch obviously takes it out no problem. Execute's not going to be a problem. And all of that setup was specifically for this moment with Alakazam. The brick wall that had been taking out my party like it was nothing now goes down to 1 body slam. And we make it to Blastoise for the first time. With a fully set up Hitmonlee, though, Blastoise just doesn't stand a chance. We're going to one-shot him with Double Kick. Rival, after being a real pain in my butt for several fights, is finally taken out. And this run is on to the Elite Four, where the real challenge will finally begin. Let's see how Blackbelt does. I definitely don't expect to take down the Elite Four on my first try this time around. I didn't even expect to get by Lorelei my first time around, but I kind of got lucky a little bit and did. I beat her luckily on my first try. After that, though, she really came out and proved to be a lot harder. My levels have definitely jumped, as you can see. That is the result of going through and battling through Lorelei, battling through Bruno, and then getting my butt whooped by Agatha, who you can probably tell is going to be a nightmare for this run. By the time I finally did win, we can see here Lorelei is just not a problem. Bruce is going to sweep her party. He sets up a little bit, again utilizing badge boost and the fact that Dugong can only use rest. Lets him get to max and then just one-hit sweep her whole team. I found that strategy pretty early and stuck with it for quite a while. It made Lorelei a non-issue from a pretty early level. I think low 40s actually. The reason why we're up to 49 now is because that's where I ended up being before I finally took down Agatha. So Lorelei, not a problem. Bruno surprised me. I did actually lose against him in my first attempt here. I went in weak after Lorelei, but still thought he'd be a pushover anyway. And he wasn't. He took me down the first time. However, getting back at him, I think that was the only time he won against me, and it's probably one of the few times he's going to win against me at all while doing this whole trainer class series. He is absolutely the slouch of the Elite Four. Generally not going to be much of a challenge at all. I really utilized him to kind of level up my weaker party members, to be perfectly honest. All in attempt to prepare for the battle with Agatha, which is a nightmare in this run, but almost entirely due to a silly mistake that I talked about a little bit earlier. Um, and we'll go and we'll see that here in a minute after I finish sweeping. Or, well, I don't sweep him. I'm sorry, I don't know why I started to say that. When we finish taking him out, again, we're going to spread against him. You're going to see me pull out, I think, all of my Pokemon in this battle. Uh, to really spread the experience around, keep the levels as close to even as possible. I know Bruce has really stepped up in level compared to the rest of the party. I don't like that was happening. I really kind of only bring him out when I feel like I need to, and that unfortunately was a moment where I kind of need to. His Hitmonlee had a propensity to one-shot my team unexpectedly. I wasn't sure what was going on there, but it is what it is. We'll take it. With the rest, we can spread that out. Dig is obviously going to be great in a lot of these battles. The rest of my Pokemon get to come out here and shine. It's just Agatha being an absolute pain in my butt this whole time. Her ghost Pokemon were largely untouchable for most of the moves that I had. I do have special attacks on almost everyone at this point, but the special stats for the Pokemon in this team are just so obnoxiously low that I didn't have, even when I got really, really lucky with her attacks, not going to sleep, or if I did go to sleep, waking up early, not getting poisoned, and not getting confused, but not really hurting myself too much. I didn't even have enough PP to get out to do enough damage with those attacks to get by her. She was the true nightmare of this run. At least she was, until I finally figured out my mistake and corrected myself. We've jumped in level again. This is because I lost to her 100 times, and, well, not 100 times. I lost to her a lot, and some of the runs I reset, some of them I would keep my levels if I thought I needed them. I did eventually finally remember that Dig is super effective against her ghost Pokemon. And so after letting her two Gengar wipe the floor with me over and over and over again, and the Haunter is no slouch either, but I do eventually get by it. Not using Dig in this run through. This run through, the one where I did finally win, I'm utilizing Rock Slide against her. That was really just to kind of save PP for the Gengar. They're a lot stronger. And I figure with Get Swole Boy, he can use that Rock Slide. He can get some damage in against these ghost Pokemon. He can really help me out. Forgetting about Dig kind of stuck me here in a place where I ended up over leveling my party. But I had saved, so I couldn't really go back and undo that. But anyway, once I finally did get through Agatha, we move on to Lance. Lance is someone who I also lost to a couple times at first. He was not too dissimilar from Agatha, where I couldn't do damage to him. And I didn't expect that. I thought Blackbelt would have a clear problem with Agatha for obvious reasons, but that the rest of the Elite Four shouldn't have been too much of a problem. Lance ended up being harder than I had anticipated. He was one-shotting a lot of my Pokemon, and his Gyarados could at times wipe my party. I had absolutely horrible Hyper Beam luck. His Gyarados was using Hyper Beam all the time, it felt like, and it was never missing. It was always one-shotting. His Aerodactyl was the same way. It had a propensity to use Hyper Beam every opportunity it could, and it one-shot all of my party. I couldn't get any luck with misses. I'd made a lot of attempts trying to set up against his Dragonair to then hopefully outspeed one-shot, but I still wasn't one-shotting him, but he was one-shotting me, making him a lot more difficult than I expected, and that also contributed to the elevated levels that you see here. By the time I do reach the end of this run, I'm a much, much higher level than I had anticipated, and a much higher level, I think, than I was in Beauty, which I think is the only run I have finished prior to this at this point in time. So again, to get by Lance, we do end up with just that strategy of level up and beat him down, which I'm not proud of, I don't like, and it really wasn't expected to be needed, but even though I have ice attacks here, again, Jackie's special is just so low that Ice Punch is doing nothing. I had basically no luck getting it to freeze on anything. And as we can see there, his Aerodactyl is just wrecking anything I try to throw at it. It being level 60 certainly doesn't help. The confusion wasn't really too much of a problem, thankfully. But Jesus, these hyper beams. That one doesn't one-shot me, but I'm a little bit surprised. Most of the time it did. So on recharge, I'm able to take it out. We do finally make it to Dragonite in this run. I think this is the first victory over him that you're seeing. It doesn't end up being my last because I do have to come back, but the second time through, he was much easier. In this one, his Dragonite then comes out and just has a ton of HP, and that killer Hyper Potion that absolutely destroyed my hopes at that point in time. I'm setting up with a bunch of Meditates. He's setting up with a bunch of Agilities and Barriers, effectively nullifying all this extra damage I'm trying to build up. Thankfully, things do end up falling my way anyway. We have High Jump Kick at this point in time, which is a very powerful attack. Between his barriers and it not being effective, though, it doesn't do a ton of damage, at least unless I crit. But we do finally make it through. He has gone down, and from this point, we can finally go through to our champion, which is another point in the game where I started losing. My first time against the champion did not go well at all. Finally getting by the champion took me, I believe, 3 tries. This Pidgeot represented an immediate challenge right away. I'm playing a clip from one of my losses here. His Pidgeot's wing attack was doing a ton of damage and critting every single time. Between the constant crits and it outspeeding everything in my party, that Pidgeot, along with the Alakazam that comes out later, were just brick walls for me when I first got to here. When I finally do take him down, it requires a little bit of luck. I'm going to set up with some Meditates, and I'm going to get the very, very rare non-critical attacks from this Pidgeot. As you can see, that's what we got there. When it doesn't crit, it doesn't do too bad, and with just one Meditate, I can end up one-shotting it. But it gets immediately followed up with the Alakazam that was also outspeeding everything I had without that setup from Meditate. The times I did get by Pidgeot, Alakazam came out and just took out my whole party. So fortunately on this run, we get the non-crit from Pidgeot. We do get the setup, which lets us then outspeed Alakazam, and we one-shot it. The rest of Champ's party just isn't a problem. The setup Bruce just mows him down for the most part. And outside of, being outsped by Pidgeot and Alakazam, the rest of Champ is easy, I'll say. The wall he has up front proved a little bit tough to get through, but once I finally broke through it, nothing he had could stand up to me at all. Bruce, being my carry through most of the playthrough, goes ahead and carries me through the champ battle, and I was absolutely okay with that. Level 62 is way higher than I was expecting to see, but it is what it is. We are officially the champion. Overall on this run, there were some challenges that I wasn't anticipating. There were some challenges I was anticipating. We end up with a whole party level way above what I was looking for, but it didn't feel that hard. And I'll have to check to know for sure. I think some of them might have been fast level up Pokemon, which really does make a big difference. But anyway, for our registration, we have Bruce, our level 62 Hitmonlee, Giswolboy, our level 50 Machoke, Jackie, our level 50 Hitmonchan, and finally Optimus, our level 51 Primeape. Black Belt is down. He was pretty easy. We'll see how he ranks at the end of the season when I do our tier list. Thanks for joining me, everyone.